Welcome to episode 480 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Grace Winburn
and Andrew Swafford.
And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about movies that we saw this week in part one. And in part two, we're going to be continuing our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series with a little bit of a switch. With the recent sad
persona swap, as you
we keep swapping the movies out, but you know what? Shut up. And so
just keeping up with what movie we were doing next week.
No, nobody cared. And so due to the very sad passing of Shelley Duvall, we decided we were going to do a Robert Altman movie. We were going to do Long Goodbye for the 70s. But instead of that, because of Shelley, we're doing 1977's Three Women to celebrate her. So exciting things. Before we jump into the part one, though, our next episode, we're going to be getting ready to do this later this week. But August 3rd, for those in the Charlotte area, if you will listen to this August 2nd, we're going to be doing a live podcast at the Independent Picture House there. 8 o'clock showing of Repo Man. Come out. It's going to be a fun time. Andrew, Michael, Grace, myself, we're all going to be in attendance. Screening the movie.
Too.
What?
With a guest as well.
With a guest, Sam Shapiro, who helped curate the series, was longtime UNCC, UNC Charlotte film studies professor. He's going to be joining us also, talking a little bit about the movie. But yeah, we're really excited about it. First live podcast in a while.
Yeah. And did we mention what series that this is kind of coming at the end of for them?
Yeah, they're doing a summer of '84 series. So they've been screening a bunch of movies that came out that summer. Started with like Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom, but they've been like The Natural was here this past weekend. It's just a bunch of movies from that summer they've been screening over the last few months. So this is coming. This is as part of that. I think the week after we do Repo Man, they're going to be doing. Paris, Texas.
Oh,
yeah.
So
yeah, it's very really cool series that they're doing, for sure. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into check that out. You'll get to hear it next week if you're not in Charlotte, and we're gonna hopefully cross our fingers, not promising, maybe have some video. We'll see. Well, cool. Let's go ahead and jump in though to movies that we saw this week. Andrew, I'm gonna kick it off with you for 2 new releases.
Yeah, do you want to start by talking about Longlegs, Grace? We both
sure,
saw
yeah.
that. So Longlegs seems to be the movie that like everyone on Letterboxd is talking about right now. Like every now and then there is just like a movie that there is just a ton of discourse about, and I feel like Longlegs has become one of those movies. But this is the new movie.
Sorry to interrupt. It's I think it just passed Parasite as like Neon's like highest grossing release ever.
Oh.
Yeah.
And Parasite, I think, is like the most logged movie on Letterboxd. I wonder what Longlegs is in that rating.
Well, just in terms of like being a box office hit, it's been crazy.
Yeah. But anyways, this is the new movie by Oz Perkins, a guy that I've been a fan of for a long time. I think a lot of people are probably hearing his name for the first time because this is like by far the widest release he's ever gotten. And there's this huge marketing push around this movie as well. I think one of the trailers calls it like the scariest horror movie of the century or something like that. Which, I think a lot of people have been disappointed at it not living up to. And I guess I'm one of those people, though I didn't really go into this movie expecting it to be like extremely scary. That felt like it had to be somewhat of like trick marketing to me, having seen other Oz Perkins movies, because they're just like not these nonstop thrill rides. They're very minimalist. They're very like textured. Like you can kind of hear small things in the sound design that kind of creep you out. His most recent movie was a pretty different take on what he usually does. Gretel and Hansel is like a horror fairy tale movie, which like that fairy tale is genuinely very horrifying. And he stages it in all sorts of like new, previously unthinkable ways. But anyways, Longlegs, the movie we're actually talking about, stars Micah Monroe, who people might know from It Follows. I think she's also in The Guest. I like her in that. And Watcher from like 2 years ago. I want to say she was fantastic in that movie.
Can I just say
Yeah.
one real quickly? I'm surprised that she is not somebody like she's really good in the movies that she's in. I'm
She's
highly
Right.
Yeah,
I'm highly surprised she has not gotten into more widespread stuff, you know? Like I'm just thinking of others who have like, you know, been in something small and then like branched out into like more mainstream stuff. Micah Monroe has like I don't know if necessarily avoided that, but like it's been very much like in the indie scene more than like, you know, she's not popping up in like a studio film or anything like that.
it's possible she's avoided it. It's also possible that like the star system is just very different now, and like
Yeah.
movies in general aren't driven by stars in the same way that they're like driven by IP, but used to be driven by stars. But I don't know. I'm glad that she's not gotten sucked into the IP world. Like I'm thinking of Mary Elizabeth Olsen, not Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Who's the Olsen, the third Olsen?
Oh, Elizabeth Olsen.
Elizabeth Olsen. Like,
I'm not.
Mary
had a great
Mary
like,
Ashley, Elizabeth Kate,
three
Olsen.
women.
Yeah, all three of
them.
Three names.
I'm not saying like why is Micah Monroe not in the new Avengers movie? No, I'm not saying
Yeah.
definitely.
more.
Doesn't need to do that.
Yeah, but more I'm like surprised
One
like a
does
good like HBO series
Yeah.
or something like that hasn't picked her up or something like that. You know, it's been crazy. Anyway, sorry.
She's very good in this movie. She plays a FBI agent, a like psychic FBI agent, highly intuitive FBI agent, who's playing opposite Nicolas Cage, who plays a serial killer by the name of Longlegs, who's like sending these. He's leaving these cryptic messages at all of the places where these murders happen. Though he has left no actual like DNA evidence in any of these places, so people are wondering how could he have possibly committed these crimes. But you know, there's like letters addressed like from him in all of the crime scenes. He's not really hiding his identity so well. He's like kind of making a show of it, as Nicolas Cage kind of makes a show of it in pretty much anything he's in. I think this is a little bit more restrained than some of the stuff that he usually does, but it's still, you know, has these scenes of Nicolas Cage goes crazy that, you know, everybody wants to watch a YouTube compilation of. But that's kind of the basic premise. It's a pretty familiar serial killer, like detective cat and mouse game narrative that we've seen in things like Zodiac, for example. Also Silence of the Lambs, a movie that's been mentioned a lot with this movie.
I keep saying that, and I don't really get that because, like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, like, there's a mystery to be solved, and there's an FBI agent, a female FBI agent that solves it. But we're like, they speed through all of the mystery solving.
They solve it very quickly.
They solve it very quickly, and also away from us. Like, we don't see a lot of the conclusions that they come to because it's less about that. Like, that kind of, it's not that like irritates me, but when people compare it to that, it's like, it's.
I think that's definitely like the cinematic reference point that it's probably making. Oz Perkins is a very like elusive filmmaker.
Yeah, I guess also like in time, you know, the time period for it all.
Is it set in the 90s?
Well, yeah, because I didn't pick up on that until there was the big like portrait of Bill Clinton. I'm like, did they just? Is that like his favorite
show you
president?
Bill Clinton
like,
so many times,
and I'm like, oh no, wait, he's the president that they are sworn to protect as FBI agents. Like, I didn't put that together.
Longlegs president is the guy from T-Rex, whose name I'm forgetting right now. The band that he's singing the entire movie.
Yeah. See, everybody keeps talking about T-Rex. I'm not familiar with
T-Rex is good.
But there just felt like this sort of like unstuck quality in time. How it felt like so Midwest that it's like so isolated, snowbound, like suburban, also like agrarian. So everything felt really removed. So it was hard to really get like a feel for the time. And that left me with some unease. I was terrified. This scared me. It is scary for sure. This scared me so bad. And I have told everybody that's on the other side of my bar, hey, you have got to see Longlegs. You scared the piss out of me. Like, I certainly had the reaction that like, this is frightening, this is scary. I'm like a dream in a horror movie audience because whatever you put on that screen is gonna frighten me. Yeah. And horror movies have like the unique disadvantage. They have to be scarier than what came before them and scarier than what's coming after them. Yeah. And I think he does a really good job. Like you said, it's textured, minimalist, it's super pared down and not so you know, the scares are so few and far between. that I was so.
There aren't really like scare scenes, I wouldn't say. You just kind of like see a lot of horrific shit.
Very a lot gorier than what I thought as well.
Yeah.
Some, like I had some folks tell me, they're like, "Oh no, it's not that gory." I really disagree. I don't think that.
It's upsetting. I think it's upsetting to look at times, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm also a little squeamish, and like one thing that really stuck out with me was like, of course, the color red, but like blood red, all of the blood, like there was a fair amount. And like this gets a little graphic, and I'm really sorry, but like it really stuck with me watching it like pour out of a person. Like I feel like in a lot of horror movies it's like a splatter and it just like stays that way, but there's movement like to
there's
the
a lot of blood in there.
There's a lot of blood, and it flows, and it was pretty overwhelming to watch. Because I feel like in a lot of horror movies, it's pretty stagnant. Like it's suggested, like it's fake blood. Everything also felt like really real to me.
Yeah, and also like the nature of the crimes is very upsetting too. You're watching, or in some cases, just hearing about like families murdering each other, including like violence against children, for example. It has a very like kind of evil aura about it.
Yeah.
Like I kind of felt like I was watching something evil.
Absolutely. Not to be like, like super, like religious about it. I mean, although it has that like religious horror like quality to it, but like
there's also religion like as a core thing in the movie near the end. I mean, we're dealing with the devil here on some level, which would not be the first time that Oz Perkins has had the devil as like a character in one of his movies.
Sorry, it's just like kind of funny. It's like who's like, wow, these are awful, terrible like killings. Like, what's going on in this world? I was like, well, it's the devil.
Yeah, is that a spoiler for me to say it's the devil?
No, I don't think. I mean, like it's something evil. There's something satanic. Well, must be the devil.
It's also Satanic Panic era. That's kind of where it's set as well. Kind of like Maxine, coincidentally, just a couple of weeks ago. But I didn't love the movie. I don't know. Something about it. It just didn't quite feel. I don't know. That substantive to me. Like I felt like I was watching, these really horrific plot beats, kind of be unrolled before me. But it didn't really make me think about a whole lot. And I also didn't necessarily find it like thrilling as a horror movie. Like I said, the scare scenes aren't really there. A lot happens off screen. And, I'm also kind of a skeptic of the current era of Nicolas Cage. Like I want to like his projects and I go see them often. Like I saw Color Out of Space, I saw Mandy, I saw Mom and Dad. Like I try to keep up with some of his bigger ones.
Dream Scenario.
Constantly. Dream Scenario, his best modern movie, I think. I really like Dream Scenario. But he's not doing he kind of gets to do the I'm gonna do a big oversized performance at times, but in that he's doing it in these like self kind of isolated dream sequences, and he's like a different version of that every time, and they're contrasted with him as like a pretty relatively grounded dude. Like
this is Dream Scenario.
Dream Scenario. He's like the most regular sounding guy they could possibly create, but he's got like all sorts of like psychological hangups that make him kind of like go a bit, get a bit tense under the pressure that movie puts him in. But I like him kind of like modulating the crazy way more than what he normally does, which is just like to be really big and loud all the time. So if you really do like that, if you're really in the bag for what Nicolas Cage has been doing for the past couple of years, like you probably will dig what he's doing here. But I don't know, didn't love it. I feel kind of mixed on it, but it's definitely like, it has a presence, and a horror movie should have that, I think.
Oh, yeah. It was very effective on me. Like I already said, I'm a chicken, but I think there was something like a little more frightening about like how people's beliefs were like the driving force in committing these horrific acts. Like it's so hard because it's like I really want people to go see it, and I don't want, and like I didn't look up anything about it, so I could go in blind, and so that my initial reaction was like, oh, this is a scary trailer, this feels like it's going to scare me, and then I can build it up in my mind and be scared by it. So I don't want to like spoil too much for anybody else, but like they're just it seemed to be like strengthen beliefs, like how strong is your faith in whatever it is, faith, whether it's God or the devil, or faith that what you do or that our actions can save someone, could protect someone, and the power that those beliefs have, and what people will do in the name of their beliefs. So and like that's a little abstract, but like that to me was where like the substance of it comes. Like there's power in people's beliefs, and people that like hold fast to whatever their core may be.
I think it's kind of hard for me to like spend a lot of time interpreting, I guess, because like so much of the movie, it feels symbolic in when initially presented to you, but then like it kind of gets very explained by the end of the movie, and I'm only thinking about it in like the literal terms that the movie has presented for me. But I could definitely see that as interpretation.
Well, Longlegs is in theaters now. Like I said, it's been blowing up at the box office for the most part. Like for that type of movie. I mean, it's no Deadpool and Wolverine, but but yeah. Andrew, you also had a movie that just it was the big festival darling, but then just had its streaming premiere on Criterion Channel.
Yeah, I hate to be kind of lukewarm on this one too, but I'm also kind of lukewarm on The Beast by Bertrand Bonello, who's a director that I have had mixed experiences with. I really love his movie House of Tolerance, though I think the French title is actually something else. And also Nocturama, I was kind of mixed on. There were things that I wanted to like about that movie, but ultimately, like, I felt like it didn't quite come together for me. I think that I would probably like it a lot more if I rewatched it now. But his newest film, The Beast, stars Léa Seydoux in 3 roles, alongside, who's the guy from 1917? I'm forgetting that dude's name right now.
I know who you're talking about, but it's some tall British white man.
British white man, very severe.
Benedict,
his name is George McKay.
Sure he is.
Seydoux and George McKay. Both playing 3 different versions of the same character. This is set in a dystopian future where artificial intelligence has kind of so supplanted the hegemony of the human race that humans are kind of seen as like less capable than AI of doing most jobs. And so in order to be kind of seen as competent, humans have been encouraged to kind of repress their emotions, and have kind of been given the opportunity to do so through various like drugs and medical procedures as well. So it's kind of like a giver dystopian future where nobody has any feelings. Everyone is like, just these artificial cogs bouncing off one another in this larger, it's not necessarily like emphasize what kind of machine it is. Like, it's not necessarily a capitalist machine or like a totalitarian machine. It's just like life is kind of been sucked of any and all passion from this AI future that we found ourselves in. And so that's one era this movie is set in. The other eras are, I think, the 2010s and sometime in the 1800s in Paris, I want to say. I think you're in Paris in all 3 eras. And Léa Seydoux and George McKay are playing this kind of like doomed romance where they want to be together but can't quite be together in any of the 3 eras. In the 1800s, it's because she's already married. In the future, it's because there are no emotions, and people don't have those kinds of normal relationships anymore, I suppose. Then in the 2010s is because George McKay is an incel, and specifically like modeled after Elliot Rodger, to the point of like there are long scenes in this movie where George McKay is literally reading the transcripts of Elliot Rodger's videos. Oh, he was a mass shooter who like shot up a sorority house because, you know, of all the women that he deserved but couldn't have. And so there's kind of the movie kind of jumps back and forth between these eras somewhat erratically. I couldn't quite make much rhyme or reason as to why I was looking at one era or the other. Though there is kind of like a through line in the movie where like part of her in the future kind of cleansing herself of all emotions, she gets like her past lives like scrubbed out of her brain. And so you're kind of like seeing different versions of herself in previous eras. But it is whiplash to go back and forth between this like costume drama where there's this romantic tension hanging in the air between these two posh people who really want to be together but can't, and Elliot Rodger's speeches and like worrying that Léa Seydoux is about to get shot by this guy who's like skulking around her house, or the house that she's staying in that scene, I suppose. So I don't know, tonally the movie didn't quite work for me. Though I could imagine it feeling like a pretty bold swing that works for some people. I kind of struggled with it. You know, the 2010 portion was just kind of like, you know, maybe a bit too like intense and upsetting compared to the other sections. And the future section didn't feel like it spoke to the present AI moment in the way that I feel like a movie coming out right now about that kind of needs to be. I don't know. It still felt very basic to me. Like AI is going to make the world less emotional, and it kind of leaves it at that. You know, I want a movie that's really going to like get into the nitty gritty of what that might do to our future in a more like, I don't know, well observed way. This just felt like it was painting in very broad strokes, but a lot of people really like Bertrand Bonello, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you will like it. If that premise sounds interesting to you, you should watch it because it's definitely an interesting movie, but not a favorite of mine, I gotta say.
Dang.
Yeah.
The more positive notes, a movie that you know, I guess could be a favorite of mine is Perfect Days, which I just rewatched. This is one of the latest. He also had another movie last year from Vin Vendors. Perfect Days, set in Tokyo. You follow Hirayama, who's played by Koji Yakusho, who I think American audiences are probably most familiar with his lead role in Cure from 1997. He's also been in a couple like
he's
memoir.
in 13 Assassins by Takashi Miike.
Yeah, he's in 13 Assassins. He's in Memoirs of a Geisha. He's in Babel. He's in Tempo.
Yeah.
So he's in stuff. Cure is probably the most recognizable thing that he's in.
Cure is also a masterpiece, and if you've not seen Cure, you should go watch Cure.
Yeah. This is a very different movie from Cure. This one, he plays Hirayama, who is just this utterly content, older man living in Tokyo. He lives a very simple life. He wakes up every morning. He sprays his plants with some flowers. He sprays water on his plants. He gets a little coffee from the machine. He drives to work. He does his job where he cleans toilets around Tokyo. They're the coolest toilets ever. And you're wondering, why does he clean toilets? Well, initially Vendors was supposed to make a ad for Tokyo Toilet. And then he started filming it and was like, there's a narrative here, I guess. That's not what he said. I'm just assuming.
I hope that they actually showed the individual sections as toilet commercials. Do you know?
Kind of. They are, yeah, kind of. Like, I mean, it's just like these very like these kind of quiet moments of him like cleaning the toilet, and you're just kind of like, damn, man, like I wish I was cleaning my toilets that early. Or at least
think about how nice that could be.
or at least like that there was like that you had access to like public restrooms similar to like what they have here. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, when I'm outside, I need to go to the bathroom. I'm always pissed that we don't have like readily available public.
Oh, then you're gonna love this movie.
Yeah,
It's got that, and he's obsessed with cassette tapes. It's really it's really Andrew Core, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's very like the that's pretty much the gist of the movie. He like goes to work. He it sprinkles in little moments of like some of his passions. Like he likes music, so like he has these cassette tapes that he keeps in his car, and he'll like put them in. Has like impeccable movie or music taste. Listening to like a lot of like Lou Reed and stuff. Really great. He's really into books. He loves taking photos of trees and like takes it with his like photo camera and gets them developed, and like has this whole process where he's like ripping apart the ones that he feels like don't really match, and then putting the ones that do match like in this box. You can see that he has this like rich archive of photos that he's taken over the years. And really the narrative of the movie, outside of this guy's just kind of routines, are little small stories that intersect with these routines. He has a coworker who is trying to impress a girl. He has a niece who shows up unannounced. He just kind of these like small little vignette stories happen within this just overall narrative of this man quietly living his life in Tokyo. It reminds me a lot of another movie I really, really like that I feel is highly underrated, and that's Jim Jarmusch's Patterson with Adam Driver.
Oh yeah. It does seem like a Patterson-esque movie.
Very similar movie, just very like calm, very very thoughtful, very like soothing, therapeutic cinematic experience. Like I said, great needle drops, just beautiful like kind of scenes of modern Tokyo. Honestly, like makes you want to like quit your job and just buy a little apartment in Tokyo and clean toilets and live your nice happy life. He like goes to like a he goes to a spa every other day. He like goes to a like this little ramen spot and watches Japanese baseball. I'm just like, man, like this guy lives the best life. Like this is all I want to do. I don't need like all this other crap that's going on in life. But yeah, I don't know. Vendors I don't think has made like, he's one that like hasn't really, I felt like, garnered attention in a while. He's been kind of making stuff, but it's I don't think I haven't been keeping up with him. I don't think it's necessarily been good. I caught this last year. I missed it at TIFF. Then it played at the Charlotte Film Festival, so I caught it there. And then right now it's playing on Hulu. You could find a lot worse way to spend 90 minutes than watching this on Hulu. It's really nice. It's very sweet. The lead performance, I mean, he gives you exactly kind of what you need in this. It's just like this kind of steady presence who's, very, very, very comforting, and very like, has these very funny moments as his days are thrown in disarray. There's like one,
Imperfect Days.
Yeah, there's this one sequence. I think like the height of like negative drama that's like happening in it is like his coworker quits at one point and he has to pick up 2 shifts, and like he's having to clean all these toilets around Tokyo, and like you're just like, why are you doing this to him? Like this is the height of anger. This is the bad guy moment of Perfect Days, is that the co-worker left him in a lurch and he's having to clean all the toilets in Tokyo.
Is there potty humor in Perfect Days?
Not really.
Okay, I'm wondering what wacky hijinks this guy gets up to on his toilet cleaning job.
There's hijinks, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Very like sweet. It's a very sweet movie. I don't know, again, like I know everybody's like, I gotta listen to a bunch of homophobic jokes on Deadpool and Wolverine. Like that's movies these days, but you don't have to do that. You can just avoid that.
Thank you, vendors.
Well, that's going to be my goal for this episode, is to, rather than promote Deadpool and Wolverine, just continuously tell you not to go see it. But yeah, Perfect Days. It's on Hulu. Check it out. We got some time. Do y'all want to talk about Long Goodbye to lead us into the
Yes.
Robert Altman chat?
The movie we were originally going to talk about this week, that I had never seen and was excited to see. It's been on my watch list for a long time, and so I figured that I might as well just watch it and prep for Three Women. And I'm really glad that I did. Loved it. Fantastic movie. Do you want to introduce it? Do you want to talk about it? This is like one of your faves. You like brought notes.
Oh, well, so I shouldn't.
You brought notes. No, I don't have anything to say about it. I'm good.
I have notes, and I have a textbook with a quote about Robert Altman that like placed it and all. Like, I was very excited for this one. The 70s in American film history, I mean, is probably like my favorite decade. So much comes out of it. And that's like a real time when, you know, Hollywood system, as we knew it at one point, doesn't exist anymore. And then, you know, things are changing, right cycle, left cycle, these like genre subversions. And we get a lot of like our favorite directors that we have now, they, you know, come around in the 70s. So, like Robert Altman. The Long Goodbye is a genre subversion, a take on film noir with one of film noir's favorite hard-boileds, Philip Marlowe, and it places him in the modern Hollywood of the 70s. So it's like...
and so Philip Marlowe's... The most Philip Marlowe movies are set in what, the 40s?
In the 40s, you get The Big Sleep, you get Murder My Sweet with Dick Powell. You get Robert Mitchum actually did a remake of, or I shouldn't say remake, but did another Big Sleep in the 60s. I haven't seen that one. I stick to what I know with film noir, which is like 30s and 40s. And that suits me just fine. But this is like, what if we took that hard-boiled 40s style private detective and we dropped him in the 70s, this new world of like liberation, of free love, of sense of like sensitivities to the world, like with what's going on, and that Hollywood that we all knew and love. It's not that anymore. It's just like an echo. It's just something to reference. It's something like, hey, remember when?
It definitely is presenting Hollywood as a terrible place that you do not want to spend any time in.
You don't want to be there anymore. It's not the Hollywood that we know and love. And so, you know, what do you do when that archetype meets, you know, that time? And it's so good. It's pretty bleak.
Yeah, I was surprised at how bad of a time so many scenes were. And, like, the movie is still more or less a good time because, like, Elliot Gould is just, like, this unflappable lead who, like, has these hilarious, like, humdrum responses to the crazy shit happening around him. He kind of, like, his energy kind of buoys you through the whole movie, I feel like.
Yeah.
But, man, this is just, like, him going from upsetting situation to upsetting situation. And it starts with, like, such a small but like deeply like relatable one, or like I don't know. It is such a small scale problem that like I'm so glad that this is where the movie starts. He wakes in the middle of the night because his cat wants a particular type of cat food and he doesn't have it, and he has to go out to the grocery store. They don't have the kind of cat food that he needs for the cat because the cat is a very picky eater. Brings it back, brings like the wrong kind back. Does this whole move of like putting the cat food that the cat doesn't want into the can of the cat food he does want, and the cat is still not fooled by this. Hysterical starting point. He loses the cat, but he does save the cat in a manner of speaking. Like that is such a great way for us to kind of latch on to that character as he just kind of like stumbles through like all of these crazy situations.
Oh yeah, I mean he but it's like from situation to situation. There's like his interrogation. Then
that's hilarious. The interrogation.
The interrogation scene is so funny because it's like in something like Murder My Sweet, Philip Marlowe's interrogated, and that interrogation sequence takes on like there's some suspense, there's a little bit of dread, like how's it going? He's his eyes are he's like wrapped up in gauze, so he can't really see, and you know that like spotlight is on him, grilling him. But this takes on like he's in control. I mean, like his use of humor to kind of like upset and throw them off of whatever game they're trying to play with him.
He makes it seem like he's been interrogated so many times. It's just like an annoying part of his Tuesday. Yeah. You know, get me out of here.
You guys again.
Yeah.
Like, he does just kind of like skate by, or like, you know, just float on by. Everybody does also seem to know him. That's what I really like too. Is that he has this like quality of like a fixture of the community. Like, oh yeah, that's
feels like
Marlowe.
Everything is within like walking distance too. There's like 3 locations that you just like ping pong back and forth between this entire movie.
Well, I think that the like the gated community that I think I saw this movie in January, so I can't remember really anybody's names. Who's our female protagonist? I didn't watch this movie when we decided not to watch.
So she's like the wife of a famous author.
Yeah,
I forget the famous author's name too.
I forget his name and the femme fatale in this. I feel like their community is way out. It's much more like beachy, coastal, way out.
He barely goes anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're kind of trapped in a couple of rooms in this movie. And like you get the sense that like these characters are trapped in these rooms too. Like this woman you're talking about, I wish I knew her name as well, is just like trapped in this awful marriage with this like horrible drunk of a husband. And like that's one thing that it feels like this movie is trying to say about California. Like we have this idea of these people as like these geniuses leading these artistic lives of glamour, but most of them are just like, you know, rich people who have too much time on their hands and, you know, get super fucked up and mistreat people around them. Or there are people who get super fucked up and just like dissociate from the world around them at all. You know, like there's like this little hippie commune that's across the way from Elliott Gould. And they're just like kind of naked and singing songs and meditating and like not getting involved with any of the crazy shit that's happening around them, but also not really helping in a way that Marlowe is trying to.
They felt like much more indicative of like the youth culture that's happening in like the 70s.
Sure. Yeah.
When put up against like the very harsh realities of like crime in their neighborhoods and abuse happening like right next door.
Yeah. And what are they going to do realistically, right? Like it's a societal wide, these problems are societal wide problems. But Altman does seem to be like kind of presenting these 2 types of people that kind of like are populating LA, and Elliott Gould is just like the sort of passive observer, kind of shrugging his shoulders at them all, right?
Yeah. Like what can I do? Everybody needs me to like solve their problems for them.
Yeah,
I've got problems of my own, people.
When he first walks out of his apartment, one of the like, you know, naked ladies in the other apartment asks like, "Can you go get me some brownie mix?"
Yeah,
and he does.
That felt very familiar too, just like neighborly, like close enough for like the niceties, but like not really involved enough to help with like the really tough stuff.
Yeah.
It's bleak, it's dreadful. This one character is brutalized by her gangster boyfriend.
Oh god, that was such an upsetting scene.
It felt like it kind of came out of nowhere, but it was to like demonstrate his anger and like sort of him like off the leash. Yeah. Like how unhinged she can be. And then she's brought back into a room again with him, and I got really tense, worried. You see her, she comes back in and she's all bandaged up, and I mean she looks like she's in a bunch of like painful contraptions to like, you know, heal her poor body, and you get this sense again that he might just haul off and beat her up again.
Right. Yeah. And I mentioned the novelist's wife earlier, but really there are 3 women
Hey.
That are kind of trapped in these awful domestic situations, right? There's the woman that you're talking about who gets brutalized. She's like in a relationship with this gang leader. And then there's also the woman who turns up dead at the beginning of the movie that like we learn more about that situation later. And like, are those the only three women in the movie? I feel like those are the only three women. No, there's also the neighbors, I suppose.
The neighbors, but I mean, like, they don't play the same.
Yeah. They kind of like are almost like a chorus or something, you know, like these are the three actual characters who have agency and do things, but they're like trapped in these situations in which like these awful men have absolute power, like have no check on it whatsoever. You know,
if you're wanting three women, have we got a movie for you? That's gonna be my butt in transition right there.
Yeah.
If you want, but Long Goodbye. Yeah, it's a bummer we weren't able to do that, but it's available. I think it's pretty available. I've seen it on Criterion Channel, Amazon Prime, etc. So,
have you seen it, Zach?
I haven't because we didn't watch it for this episode. I only watch stuff for Cinematary. Those are the only movies I watch.
It's hard to make time for anything else, to be honest.
All right. Well, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna be talking about the three women, just the three women.
Yeah.
Any old three.
Yeah, just of all.
Name three women.
Yeah, after this break. And we're back with part 2 of episode 480 of Cinematary. In this part, we're going to be continuing our Young Critics Watch Old Movie series with 1977's Three Women. Written and directed by Robert Altman, the film stars Shelley Duvall, Sissy Spacek, and Janice Rule. Millie considers herself irresistible to men, though in fact men have little trouble resisting her. Mysterious teenager Pinky, Millie's fellow physical therapist at a desert spa, who becomes her roommate at a singles-only apartment building, at first appears worshipful of Millie's self-confidence, but soon seems to be taking over aspects of her personality. Director Robert Altman conceived of the idea for Three Women while his wife was being treated in the hospital, and he was afraid that she would die. During a restless sleep, he had a dream in which he was directing a film starring Shelley Duvall and Sissy Spacek in an identity theft story against a desert backdrop. He woke up mid-dream, jotted notes on a pad, and went back to sleep, receiving more details. Upon waking up, he wanted to make the film, although the dream had not provided him with a complete storyline. That bastard dream. Altman consulted author Patricia Resnick to develop a treatment, drawing up 50 pages, initially with no intent to write a full screenplay. Altman secured approval from 20th Century Fox, which supported the project on the basis of the success of his 1970 film MASH. Studio manager Alan Ladd Jr. also found the story idea interesting and respected the fact that Altman consistently worked within his budget in past films, as this was before Altman's 1980 film version of Popeye, which considerably exceeded his initially approved budget. According to a 1977 New York Times article, Altman was intrigued by a, quote, drawing of simian grotesques at a friend's house and contacted the 26-year-old artist Bodhi Wind. At the time, Wind was supporting himself by, quote, designing album covers and sets and costumes for rock shows. Altman, who also painted, commissioned Wind to produce the murals done by Janice Rule's character Willie. Wind reportedly received a treatment from Altman that was very different from the final film. For instance, in the treatment, Pinky and Millie worked in a film editing studio instead of a physical rehabilitation facility. Altman's only direction to Wind was to, quote, make his figures less frightening. Wind worked for a month, starting 3 weeks in advance of the shoot in the 120-degree weather of the film's location, Palm Springs, California. The New York Times article stated that the film resulted in new commissions for Wind's work, including a request from Altman for, quote, colored etched glass doors and another swimming pool painting. Altman and the cast used only a detailed outline during the 6-week shoot. Altman explained, quote, the movie will be scripted as the individual scenes are put together. The final script won't be finished until the picture is finished. Although a screenplay was completed, actresses Duvall and Spacek employed much improv, particularly in Duvall's silly ramblings and advice on dating. Altman also credited Duvall with drawing up her character's recipes and diary. According to an April 1977 LA Times article, Variety rejected the film's initial print advertisements, which depicted the 3 female leads in a distinctly phallic formation. Altman agreed to redesign the material, however, the film's posters which also contained the phallic image, remained untouched. Ingmar Bergman's 1966 film Persona was an influence on the film. In the New York Times, 1977, 3 Women is most strange and poetic when it's played straight, as when poor Millie one night comes upon an elderly couple making love, or when someone says cheerily of a character in a deep coma, "I'm sure she'll wake up when she sees you." Logic has nothing to do with the film's effectiveness, though it does with all of the performances, beginning with Miss Duval's. And then Roger Ebert in 1977 said the movie's story came to Altman during a dream, he said. He provides it with a dreamlike tone. The plot connections, which sometimes make little literal sense, do seem to connect emotionally, viscerally, as all things do in dreams. To act in a story like this must be a great deal more difficult than performing straightforward narrative, but Spacek and Duvall go through their changes so well that it's eerie and unforgettable. So is the film. On that note, 3 Women. What did y'all think of it?
Well, I had seen it before, though I do not remember so many of the like very strange and upsetting things that happen in this movie. I think it was, what was the first thing that I was like, oh wow, was it the suicide attempt when she jumps into this pool?
When she jumps into the pool.
I also did not remember a stillbirth scene either. So man, it's this movie is heavy. There's a lot going on in it, but I do like it a lot. Grace, this is your first time seeing it.
Yeah. This was my first watch. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what to expect. I still don't really know what to make of it. It's so fluid and flowing, like the water, these pools that they get in, that they use to heal and move in, and there's like a slowness to it, like when you move through water there's no real speed propelling you, it's like your own
kind of drifting.
I'm kind of still turning it over. Let me toss it back to you guys. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm still like feeling a lot of things about it.
Yeah, absolutely, there's a lot to unpack in it. But I guess like to give a little bit more of my own thoughts about it, I find it just this like fascinating character study with characters that are so strange. Like I feel like I've not seen characters quite like this in another movie. We were talking in the break about like Robert Altman's like rejection of genre and like so many, when he's dealing with a genre, he's like subverting it. But here it feels like he's not making a genre movie at all. He's like making a movie that is like singular, one of a kind. And like it is populated by these one of a kind characters as well, who are like all the more interesting for their like complexity and their ability to change. And also there's kind of a surreal, creepy, strange element to that as well. Like you can't quite be sure how much of this is being done with malicious intent, this like persona changing that's happening here. And also like how much of it could actually be chalked up to natural causes, because Sissy Spacek does fall into a coma before waking up and kind of having a persona swap. There's this very strange moment when who you think are Sissy Spacek's parents have come across the country to see their daughter in a coma. And Sissy Spacek wakes up and says, like, those people aren't my parents. I don't know who those people are. And, like, it seems like she's being sincere, and that would be a horrifying situation to be in if she is being sincere. And, like, who are these people? Identity is so strange and difficult to put your finger on in this movie, like who any individual person actually is. But you're just kind of, like, unmoored. You're always in this kind of ambiguous space. Like, why did that person say that? Did that person mean what they said? Or is that a story they're telling other people? Or is that a story they're telling themselves? The movie just, the word you used, like fluidity, I think is like the best word to describe like just the nature of this movie. You never are quite on solid ground with it, because you're just kind of like drifting where these characters go, and they don't really go physically many places, right? They're kind of like trapped in rooms with one another, like we were talking about with Long Goodbye, and in doing so they're kind of like observing one another and like mimicking each other's mannerisms in a way that like actual humans do, right? The way that we pick up on mannerisms is just like who we spend the most time with. People like make impressions on us, and we kind of see versions of ourselves mirrored in other people. This movie is like dealing with that in a mysterious, sinister kind of way. And I don't know. I think it's cool. I just think it's neat.
I just think it's neat. Yeah, the term that you used, unmoored, is a good way. Like that's how I would describe it. You spend, at least for me, I spend a lot of time just kind of being like, "Let's go, let's go." Not like in a bad way, but just more in like you're trying to like kind of get your footing and be like, all right, so like what's the vibes here?
Yeah.
And the vibes here, for our YouTube audiences,
No, I don't think that it's like erratic. I think that it's like it has a very like strong tone to it that it like stays pretty consistently within the entire time. But what exactly that tone is a little hard to put your finger on.
And that's what I mean more. It's just like it's kind of trying to like get on the wavelength and like ride whatever the wavelength is, just ride it, because that's what the movie's doing. Yeah, it's just like, but trying to get on that is tough, and so like I think like this is one that I'm like, yeah, I think on like a second viewing, I probably would get more out of. On the first viewing though, when you're trying to get your bearings in it, I struggled with it, and I say that less as like a bad thing, and more just like there's just a lot of stuff happening. Like there's a lot going on in this movie.
Yeah. Yes,
I think I'm really struggling with it. Like I really had just more of an emotional response to it than I did like an even thinking response. Sometimes I feel like there are movies that you watch and then there are movies that you feel. Yeah. And like this is one that I just felt. I felt for every single one of these, for every woman. I mean, every female relationship, there's this partnering and pairing, this dualism, whether it's best friends or sisters or twins,
competitors at times,
companions. It kind of takes you through like all aspects or all iterations of like female connections.
Yeah,
like it really gave real credence to those relationships, that like they are important and that they do change and that they can evolve, and no one being fixed and no relationship being fixed. Like between Millie and Willie,
Millie, Willie, and Pinky.
I love the IEs or like the Ys. Like
also, what were the twins' names? They're
Peggy and Polly.
Yeah.
They're
it's like everybody's almost each other already.
This dualism. Yeah, like everybody's almost. Where does one begin and one end?
Right.
If you've seen one woman, you've seen them all. You've seen at least three by then. But they're even when the two are competitors, they're also there for each other in an hour of need. Truly. So we can have this one relationship be this one relationship, but then in this exact other, in this next other moment,
it becomes a different kind of relationship.
It becomes something else.
Yeah.
Out of need, or just out of how things escalate.
One person changes, and therefore the dynamic changes.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so, and it's also like people are not any one thing, and they're not even our own perception of each other, because I was thinking about what's his name, the White Arp stand-in, that schmuck, whoever he was, husband Hart, Edgar, I guess. I hated his guts.
Oh yeah, he's awful.
He's awful, but like what he takes from each woman is whatever he wants, and he sees them however he wants, but they're not that. Like, these girls aren't that. Like, I was thinking about what he said about Willie, how, like, she doesn't need anybody. She doesn't need me right now. She doesn't need anybody.
Right.
And it's like, that's not true.
Yeah.
She like, you don't know what she needs. You can't speak for her. You don't know who she is.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, her art being an expression of her own inner turmoil. And there's there's the 3 figures in all of her art where it's like one off to the side, seemingly pregnant. That's what it looked like to me. It looked like it was her, and then the 2 coupled together, and perhaps maybe that was Millie and her husband, or her husband and whatever flavor of the month that he has that comes in.
Right.
And, you know, she's by herself, he's with whoever. There's, you know, 3 is a crowd. And then Millie is also the 3rd wheel in every one of her work relationships, and she's always off to the side and always left around.
Everybody has a work friend.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't have anybody.
She doesn't have anybody. Pinky didn't have anybody either, and she wanted Millie to be that. It's these 3 women, like, wanting connection from each other, but, like, being unable to really make that happen because of, like, you know, the society around them, the community around them, like these obstacles that keep them from finding connection to each other.
And, like, on the flip side of people who, like, have these multiple identities that they kind of shift back and forth between, I think when we first meet Sissy Spacek's character, she almost has no identity whatsoever. Like, you said that she, like, was made to look prepubescent.
She looks
when we first see
like
her,
so
right?
Young.
So it's like right out the womb. You know,
like,
this is raw clay that has not been molded yet, right? And because she doesn't really have an identity or a personality, she doesn't have any sense of, like, what to do in any given situation, because she doesn't know who she is, what she would do in that situation, right? And, you know, Millie is this character who clearly knows who she is. Like, she has this very, very strongly defined sense of self, and is, like, constantly kind of announcing it to the world, though no one is listening or interested, in a way that is just, like, painful and, like, sometimes, like, to a comedic extent to watch. But it's interesting to see Sissy Spacek kind of observing Millie and, like, learning about her and trying to figure out, like, okay, well, she seems like she has her life figured out. How do I be like that? How do I be exactly her? You know?
Yeah, it's so funny because I mean, I think about it now. It's like she's training Pinky how to do this job, but she's also, like, training Pinky how to be how to be her specifically. I mean, to teach you how to be me. Like, that's the only thing I know how to be, and that's, you know, the, like, all that she knows.
Right.
Oh.
And so their first introduction is kind of like a teacher-student relationship, and, like, she kind of, like, takes herself into this new friendship as, like, a little sister. You know, at the end of their first day on the job, she just, like, embraces Millie as though she was a young girl embracing a bigger sister. And then, like, at the end, she's a daughter, right? As you said, they're kind of, like, cycling through, like, every different thing that a woman can be to another woman at one point or another. But yeah, wild. A lot going on. I do also, you know, you mentioned the murals. I do think that, like, we are being invited to interpret them, and also just kind of invited to reflect upon them throughout the movie. They have such a strange and sinister like undertone to them. Like, these figures that are being painted are, like, graceful and, like, have these beautiful shapes that they make, but they also have, like, these, like, sharp teeth and pointed eyes, and, like they kind of come to their hands come to points as well, and it seems like they're ready to, like, rip into each other at any given moment, but they're not. Like, for now, they're kind of, like, in this beautiful, like, static tableau, but, you know, that is not going to last, which I feel like is kind of where we're at through a lot of the movie. You're just kind of, like, seeing this, like, situation that is going to explode in one way or another, but you're not really sure which direction it's going to end up going until the very end. I also love the way that those murals are incorporated into that big dream sequence. right before Sissy Spacek wakes up and like takes on a new persona. Wait, no, is that when that happens? It's after she comes back, right? She wakes up and like it seems like she shifts again after that moment. But yeah, that dream sequence is absolutely beautiful, and it Robert Altman is not afraid of letting that play out for a long time. Just kind of like this collage of images that you've seen throughout the movie.
That you've seen or that you haven't seen yet. It was also like a little prophetic because of like the laughing and the crying and like Sissy or not Sissy.
Oh yeah, that's
Duvall,
right.
Like, walking forward in that pose of like her arms up and outstretched, which she then does later as she like walks out of Willie's room after delivering the stillborn baby. I was like, when did that happen? Where did that come from? But like, and that was chilling. Like, where do these images come from? It's like with dreams, it's like no one knows why we have these dreams. Like acetylcholine neurons, they fire, but where do these images come from? Right? Like, you know, what are these dreams, and how is she having this dream before it happens? That also kind of like unsticks everything.
Yeah, and that moment you're talking about when Shelley Duvall comes out with the baby's blood in her hands is like a really terrifying moment, and maybe like my favorite Shelley Duvall moment in the movie. Like, just what a like amazing like capturing of like so many different emotions like raging in this woman's mind at the same time. Like, I'm wondering, is she about to like wring Sissy Spacek's neck? Is she going to like smear the blood on her face? Is she going to just like start crying because of like this tragic moment that she just saw? It seems like she doesn't quite know what to do with her energy other than it is like everywhere inside of her, you know. Really, really a haunting cinematography in that scene too. Everything just kind of has this like shadow, you know, casting over most of it.
Speaking about Shelley, she's kind of the reason we're talking about this. You know, it's kind of interesting reading a lot of like the obituaries and stuff that came out after she passed. You know, naturally, a lot of people pointing to like The Shining, like that as the kind of obvious one. You know, others pointing to, you know, some of her other roles. This one, though, you know, we kind of picked this one not only because we were going to do like a Robert Altman this week anyway, and it was like, oh, like this seems like a kind of perfect pairing, but also because this is just such a, you know, for this kind of feels like a, you know, to a degree, like a lot of her movie. Like, she feels very like ingrained. You know, I talked a little bit like they were improvising a lot. Like Shelley Duvall like worked a lot to kind of develop this character, and this feels very like of her mind, like as somebody like as a character she's been able to craft. What did y'all think of just kind of her as a performance?
She felt so familiar. Like from the very beginning, I had kind of a hard time listening and watching because I'm like, well, yeah, I've been that odd girl out, like trying to connect. You know, I feel like anybody that has any sort of like personality and sense of self is always trying to ingratiate themselves in a group and hope that group is the right one, or hope that these people are the right one. And she has this, I feel like she had like nothing felt delusional from her, and nothing felt you know, like she's so full of herself. It felt really honest. Like it felt like she really believes like these stories that she tells, they're a part of her life, and it's all so important to her because she figured it out, and you know, it's her life that she's like put together and curated. I have been working to decorate this house, and it's really important to me. And here's someone, Sissy Spacek, you know, Pinky, this impressionable young girl that doesn't know, you know, left from right, but she's fascinated by it, and it is fulfilling. And it's fulfilling to Millie. Like, somebody appreciates this. Somebody's interested in what I have to say. Like, I'm being myself, and that speaks to someone.
She definitely wants to be seen and like connected with
anybody. And, I mean, the way that she's like talking to people at the lunch table. She's. I mean, for a second, I'm like, she's trying to get herself like a doctor husband or a surgeon husband. Like, good for you, girl, putting yourself out there. But she's pretty like what's the word? Unflappable with it. Like she
doesn't seem like it upsets her.
Yeah, it's just
no
like,
one is. People just like
don't
go out of their way to say nothing to her. She asks this guy
her.
like, "How's that sickness?" And he just coughs.
Yeah. Hey, you got over that cold? Like she seems to really care and be plugged in, and she's herself 100% of the time. One little quirk about her I kept noticing, but like my heart broke for her. Every time she drives off and we see her from the driver's side, her skirt is shut in the door.
Yeah.
Like at first it seemed kind of funny, but then to me I was like, I would just be devastated if, you know, if people saw me like that. But it just seems like this funny little quirk. Like she wears these long skirts and they get stuck in the door, and that's just her. Like that's also curated and you know, speaks to this character, this sort of like silly ditzy character, but that like doesn't see that there's anything wrong with her the same way other people do.
Yeah.
So I thought she was just wonderful. I wanted to be her friend. I really did. Like,
yeah. I also mentioned, you know, we were watching that. Like, I bet those old people love their Millie podcast that they get every day when she like escorts them to the shower or whatever.
Somebody that talks to them, and again, somebody that listens to her. Like,
and she's spending time with people primarily who don't have people to talk to them. Right.
And I mean, it seems like she can tell a story to suit anyone. Like how she, like when she brings Pinky into the pool and starts to give her, like, you know, this is kind of how we talk to people. Oh, my grandmother had sore legs and back. And Pinky believes her. Really?
But she does say things that are untrue at times. And you wonder how manipulative she is being in a way that, like, the movie much more clearly invites you to be skeptical of the way that Sissy Spacek is being. Like, there's this creepy scene where Sissy Spacek is copying down Millie's social security number, and it's like intercutting that with Millie writing nice things about Pinky in her diary. And you're like, ooh, this is some sinister intent, maliciousness, run amok. But Millie is like, she kind of is orchestrating things in her life that in a way that could be viewed as manipulative. But we also, like, you know, that is a part of human life too. Like, in the same way that the identity is sort of a construction that we choose and embody for ourselves, we're also kind of like constantly presenting to other people the version of ourselves we want them to see, right? So this movie doesn't necessarily seem like it is particularly like judgmental towards these characters. It does feel empathetic towards them. Like, I am like, I sympathize with how lost in social interaction Sissy Spacek seems in the first leg of this movie, and like kind of understand I'm going to study humans as if I was like an alien species studying them, and I'm just going to like embody their habits, right? But the movie does take all of those things to like a creepy degree. Like, another moment that stuck out to me was when the twins at this like old folks home, they like walk in perfect synchronicity with one another. Their strides are exactly the same.
At the same time.
And we see Sissy Spacek like look at them and follow them and do the exact same stride. For a second, you're like, ooh, spooky. Weird things are about to happen in this movie, but it's like, it never like fully tips over into the surreal. This is like people's lived experiences, kind of like lived almost in real time. It feels very grounded, but there's something kind of like, you know, mystical and strange happening underneath everything as well.
Going back to Shelley, also, like, it's nice to kind of see, one, like, empathy for her and like her able to kind of like have some agency in a role, like just like outside of like this movie, just like Sissy or Shelley Duvall, just like in Hollywood, like was a very tough time for her, like somebody who struggled with a lot. And so, like, you know, I think in Robert Altman, like, she found somebody who like allowed her to kind of explore a lot and like be more than kind of the persona that was like tossed on her. Like that's I mentioned like The Shining, and she's great. Like she's great in The Shining. The Shining is an iconic movie, but one that
mistreated.
Yeah, that one that where she was not treated well, and like kind of became like her signature. Like that's the thing that people think about her.
Right.
Out, and then on top of that, like just kind of the hurdle she had in life as she kind of was pushed out of the limelight of Hollywood. And so like honestly, like this is kind of like the ideal movie to watch with her after her death, just because it's something that like you feel is like true of her rather than her trying to be what other people want her to be.
Yeah, and I didn't know that she had so much of a hand in like building the character and like improving lines. It's definitely a movie that like I could see an argument made for like her having authorship of, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts? Any final thoughts or anything on Three Women? Anything from the Altman book, Grace?
It's just a book on film, but sure. What do you think all those shots of water are supposed to mean in Altman's Three Women? Maybe the water imagery has something to do with the birth, since one character is pregnant. Water's supposed to be a source of all life. That's what the book asks, that's maybe where we're supposed to start.
One thing that we should probably talk about is who is the third woman?
Oh,
we debated this.
We did. We went back on this. Like, who are the three women? I was immediately looking for like a third physical woman. So I was Peaky. Second woman, Millie. Third woman to me was Willie, because
her name has the same convention.
It's the same. It's the same, but it's like I feel like it's also like they're women at like three stages of like youth, young adulthood, like marriage age, or like seeking like marriage and a husband. And then the married woman, pregnant, like motherhood.
Past, present, future.
Like it seemed tiered like that. That also her being like the third woman that they encounter, because everybody else is already paired.
Right.
So there's always two, and then there's a solo, like a single person, and then a third single person. So they make a trio.
Willie is like intent on remaining kind of a single person, even though she's in a marriage.
Yeah.
She is in a couple, but like clearly that's a terrible marriage.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of like, almost seems like she's taken a vow of silence or something, and just wanders around, does art all day.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, my initial interpretation, and I thought that this was maybe what the movie wanted us to take away from it when I first saw it, was that the third woman is like the woman Sissy Spacek becomes after she wakes up from her coma. But I don't know. Like many things in this movie, it's very ambiguous, and I could see the argument either way.
The third woman is the women we meet along the way,
I don't know.
Very nice.
What do you think?
I think it's like, Hitchcock, the window as the camera. Are we the third woman? Ooh.
I'm certainly like the fourth, I guess.
Yeah. I just assumed it was Willie.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Willie is.
I just saw three women, and I was like, "There you go."
Third. But then it's like, why not their mean boss? Like, she could be a third woman, but she's a real pain. I don't want to include her in anything.
There's only two men in the movie, or I guess it's kind of like what I said with Long Goodbye. There are men, but they exist in like these clumps. But there are two like male characters.
Yeah.
There's like the guy who runs their workplace, and then the guy who's the landlord at the apartment complex.
Who ruins their
And again,
lives.
we have like men in these positions of power who have no check on that power whatsoever, just treating all the women in their lives absolutely dreadfully.
Yeah.
So Altman, I guess, has thoughts about that. Hopefully he did not treat the women on his sets.
Man hater, hell yeah. He's an alt man.
An alt man, that's right. I'm not like other men.
Yeah, I'm an alt man.
That's his branding, TM. All right. Well, Three Women. Yeah, check it out. Check it out for Shelley. It's not really streaming anywhere, but your local library. It's your friend.
Right.
All right. Well, that'll wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/cinematary. Not really, actually. I don't know why I keep saying that. It's just stuck in my brain. We don't really post anything. We haven't posted anything on Facebook for years.
We have Facebook. We have Instagram.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'll post stuff on Twitter and Instagram at Cinematary. We'll have some stuff from our live podcast. I guess we can announce news. We got news we can announce. I'm not going to read off all the social. I mean, letterbox.com/cinematary.
I'm not going to do it. You twist my arm.
Yeah, if you're going to make me. And then
I can't hold it back.
And then thanks to the supporters, patreon.com/cinematary. If you'd like to support the show, we'll try to arm twist some people at the live show also. Cam, Ron Hayes, Tanner Huskin, Teresa Marsathi, and Tyler Chandler, thank you so much for being for supporting the show. Big news, we're headed back to TIFF. We're headed back to TIFF, and we're headed back in full force. The 3 people on this podcast are all accredited and headed to Toronto this year.
Oh yeah.
Right ahead.
Yeah, year 6. I think year 6 of Cinematary at TIFF.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Yeah. Always a great time. Really looking forward to it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Hope good slate of movies that they've announced so far. The bigger stuff very lackluster, but like in this like good like auteur foreign space, a lot of really good titles.
Let me look at the list that I sent you all just to hype up a couple of these.
The Last Showgirl. Woo!
Yeah.
Woo!
Okay, yeah. The Last Showgirl by Gia Coppola. The Life of Chuck by Mike Flanagan. The Order by Justin Kurzel. The new Guy Madden et al. Movie, Rumors. Night Bitch by Michelle Heller. You read the book. The new Jia Ke movie.
Yeah, pumped about that.
And then Anora, you mentioned that. Did that win Cannes? It won Golden Palm. The new David Cronenberg movie, The Shrouds. The new Paul Schrader movie, Oh Canada.
Fitting.
I'm hoping we get one of the movies that there's a score by Burial for. Burial's a very kind of like reclusive electronic artist. He's never done a score before, but he has 2 movies coming out this year that he scored. One by Andrea Arnold, and
I thought that one was a TIFF.
Is
Andrea
it?
Arnold one? Yeah, I think that one.
Well, that's my most anticipated, the Andrea Arnold.
I want to say that. Don't.
I was anticipated. The other one is by Harmony Korine. But that's probably an experience. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's exciting. So, we'll be doing the usual stuff. We'll have some Instagram, some Twitter. I don't know, maybe Grace has some other ideas of how we can be doing stuff during the festival to let people know what we're seeing.
Give me the Instagram. I'll take it from here.
You can have it.
You can have it. Yeah, it's all yours.
You can have it now.
You want it? Yeah. Do you want it now? Like I'll read off
the username and password really quick.
Yeah. Patreon exclusive. No, I'm just kidding. All right, but be looking for us at TIFF. Until then, thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.